Welcome to Hip Hop Now Podcast. If you're from the future, you know what to do. Get your ass out of here. Don't disrespect the legend. Hip hop is here to stay. Let's get right into the business.
What up, y'all? I am your host, Vegas, and this is Hip Hop Now Podcast, a bonus episode. Something that we haven't done on this podcast in a while or at all, if I'm thinking about it correctly, a reaction. But a reaction in a very different way. This is a video reaction. And as you read, the title says, "Is Spotify's algorithm destroying the music industry?" Now, big shout out to everybody who's a supporter of this podcast. So hit that subscribe button if you like the content. Like it, of course. Comment. I'll read the comments for sure. But more importantly, share with people you know enjoy this kind of content. Now, the video and why I chose this video for this podcast to react to is because for a long time in audio form, mostly, I've done an annual episode called State of the Streaming Services, right? I've been doing this since Spotify came to America. Yes, there was a time where it was only in the UK. Some of y'all need to catch up. You know, some of us been here. And there was no Apple Music, remember? But as, you know, Apple Music and Tidal and, you know, Amazon Music and Spotify came along, I would do this podcast strictly to, as a consumer podcast, right? To give you options as it relates to, which service works best for you. And for the most part, it was always about the amount of music, right? And the quality of music. That's all my videos were about, or my podcast was about. You know, the amount of music, like, hey, Spotify has the most music. And they have high quality audio, or Apple has lossless, or whatever it may be. So that's what it was generally about. But I stopped doing them because it's really not about that nowadays. People have what they have and they're happy with it. And if they want to switch, they'll switch. But now it's more about your experience on the app, right? The additions of AI, like there's an AI DJ on Spotify, right? There's different versions of high quality audio on each. Some offer videos, like YouTube does also, and Spotify does. Some now include podcasts like Spotify. So it's a whole experience surrounding it. But what I will say is I like this channel, which is Sound Guys, mainly because, I found them because I was, in the market for some headphones. And, I watched some of their reviews and, they give some really in-depth reviews about headphones, speakers, whatever it may be. So if you're ever in the market for, some gym headphones, some over-the-air headphones, like some studio joints, real quick, let me just share before we get in the video, right? So these are like my old school, once upon a time, these were my go-tos. It was for the gym, probably mostly, but also I used to walk around with them. Very bassy. These are the studios. These are older version. I had to replace the cups. I think they kind of look dope, but I had to replace the cups because they got all, stank and nasty. But then at some point I converted over to like in-ear joints for the gyms, which is great. But in this case, and I'm not going to take it out, is the Sony M4s. Okay, maybe I'll take it out real quick, just so some people want to see. M4s, I don't wear these in the gym at all because I don't want to destroy them. So I stick to the in-ear buds. I have the Beats Fits. I think that's what it's called, Beat Fits, whatever. One of them joints. The joints that go in the air with the wingtips. But these are my, like, if I'm in the crib and I really want to listen to something, and I want to hear every part of the track, like Dr. Dre albums on here that he produced sound crazy. But and recently, or more in recent times, I don't know if y'all know this, RZA did a classical album, but it's not really to me, it's not really like classical music. It sounds like Wu-Tang music, but when he scores for movies and stuff like that, like it sounds more like that. It sounds like he scored for a film, but on some Wu-Tang stuff. It was pretty dope, but I use these to listen, and Apple has a app, like a classical app, that is designed for listening to Apple Music. So that combined with the audio quality, with the quality of these headphones, which have bass but also have a balance where you can listen to other forms of music. Um, it's pretty dope. You know what I'm saying? To me, let me put this on the hook. So that's the long story about me as an audiophile and a person who loves music. You who probably gets all your music from a streaming service. But the question is, and this is not just for Spotify users, because it kind of relates to everybody, but specifically Spotify, is Spotify's algorithm destroying the music industry. So let's check that out. I'll be stopping and pausing every now and again to share some of my thoughts.
The way that we listen to music has changed a lot. And it's mostly due to one app, Spotify, which has taken over the music industry with over 675 million active users. If you're not on Spotify, you're probably using one of its competitors like Apple Music that offer a very similar experience to the Spotify playbook. That playbook consists of using algorithmic playlists and song suggestions to keep you engaged within the app. On the surface, these algorithms sound like a great idea. I mean, more of what you'd love, right? But in reality, there are real-world negative consequences to these algorithms for both you, the listener, and for the artists you know and love. If we don't do something about it now, there's a real danger of losing the human component of music entirely. Let's take a look at the impacts of the algorithms on listeners, artists, and one potential danger that could destroy the entire music industry as we know it. Now, music discovery has historically always involved a social interaction. Whether it was digging through record crates with friends or scrolling through curated music blogs, discovering music meant being part of a community. Maybe a friend made you a mixtape of music totally outside the realm of genres that you typically listen to. This human connection is what opens the door to true discovery. But algorithmic recommendations, though convenient, remove the emotional side of music discovery entirely. By attempting music discovery without the human and emotional component, you might simply bounce off of music that might have been resonant with you if it was introduced in another context, say by a friend or in a different environment. Whether it's Discover Weekly, Release Radar, daily mixes, or AI-generated playlists, Spotify and its competitors have a lot of tools designed to feed you the exact music that you want to hear. These apps learn from your listening habits, and then they feed you more of the same. While it might feel like you are discovering music, in reality, you're boxed in and getting force-fed more of the same junk. The same genres, the same time periods, the same artists. You get placed in a niche of music that ensures that you keep engaging with the app, but with limited exposure to any new art.
That's a big one, right? And I guess it depends on the listeners. So leave your comments in the comment section below about this. But do you prefer a time that still exists now, where other peers or family or whoever puts you on to certain music, and that's how you get the music you listen to? Or do you prefer using a streaming service, and that streaming service learning from your habits enough to not only give you some of the, well, basically suggest similar artists compared to your music? Because he said, you get similar junk, but is it junk if you're listening to Wu Tang and they decide they're gonna they're gonna offer you some Nas in the mix? No, it's not junk. I want to hear some Nas. But so with that, for me personally, I kind of think it's a give and take. I'm the type of person, I'll listen to, because I have Spotify, I'll listen to one of those playlists. And if the majority of it is stuff I don't want to hear, I'm out. Okay. But maybe things will improve as time goes on. So let's see what's next. Algorithms impacting the music itself.
Here's the real upsetting thing though. It's not just how we find music that's changing. The way artists create music is also evolving to suit the algorithms. Tracks are getting shorter, sometimes barely hitting the 2-minute mark. Choruses often arrive within the first 15 seconds. Why? Because platforms like Spotify track listener behavior in those first few seconds, and artists don't want their song skipped. After 30 seconds, the play has counted as a stream. If a user replays the song after 30 seconds or starts playing it again, it counts as another stream. This means that there's now a real financial incentive to make songs shorter rather than having true storytelling. When Old Town Road dominated the world of streaming in 2019, record labels took notice. A short track with a catchy chorus right at the beginning is an easy way to hack the engagement metrics of the algorithm. The average length of a Billboard track dropped from over 4 minutes in the early 2000s to merely 3 minutes and 7 seconds in 2021. There's now a real pressure on artists to play into the algorithm rather than tell a proper story through their music. This also results in a homogeneity of the type of music that people hear. Artists.
Wait. Before we go forward, this is a conversation. This is a real conversation, right? For example, a lot of underground artists, and just to name a few, here's a great example. West Side Gun just released a EP, right? It was, I don't even know if it was 10 minutes. Half the tracks were like 1 minute and 30, 1 minute and 50 seconds, and stuff like that. Now, those who are wise know what he just said. Some of that is done by design to feed the algorithm, right? Short form songs just perform better. They find their way to listeners who want to hear that music, which is crazy. And I guess we'll learn a little bit more about that. But also, he said one key thing when you're talking about artists, and particularly in hip hop. Hip hop is full of a bunch of storytellers. What are you getting in that short amount of time? Because when you go back and you're getting like 4-minute songs, there's 3 verses, there's a beginning, middle, and end, especially if you're telling a story or you just want to convey the topic of this song. It doesn't matter what it's about. Now you have to do it in half the time. It's kind of crazy. And are most hip hop artists capable of doing that kind of thing? Can older artists do that when you were accustomed to hearing them have songs that were like 4 to 5 minutes? It's crazy. Not most artists don't do it, but there are a lot who do this all the time, and honestly, it works.
And their management are incentivized to copy whatever performs well in the algorithm. Wonder why Post Malone and Beyonce are making country music right now? It's because in the last 6 years, country music streaming has increased by 287%. Where rap dominated in the late 2010s, country has been the key to hacking the algorithm lately. On the other hand, many of the algorithmic playlists on Spotify are filled with unknown artists who will never see recognition for their work. Spotify can feed you a perfect playlist and you can enjoy said playlist without reading the names of any of the artists or the tracks that you're listening to. This is by design.
Wow.
If you don't know or don't care who the artists are that are creating the music that you listen to, it undercuts any bargaining power that those artists have with platforms like Spotify. Investigative journalist Liz Pelly uncovered the dark side of the streaming industry in an excerpt from her book, Mood Machine, The Rise of Spotify and the Costs of the Perfect Playlist. According to Pelly, here's how the system works right now. Spotify partners with production companies like Epidemic Sound and Firefly Entertainment that hire musicians to create generic background music. Those tracks are then released under fabricated artist names and seeded onto playlists by Spotify's internal teams. Musicians receive only a flat fee while surrendering their rights, and Spotify pays lower royalties for those tracks than they would to real independent artists. When your favorite chill jazz playlist fills up with anonymous tracks created for a fraction of the cost, that directly displaces independent jazz artists who might have earned meaningful income from those placements. With the focus moving away from artists and towards playlists and algorithms, Spotify could also be priming its users to accept AI-generated music. If you don't know who the artists are in that jazz playlist that you listen to every day, you won't notice when Spotify starts swapping out human artists for AI-generated tracks. Since Spotify operates on a revenue-sharing model with its artists, using AI music means they would get to keep more of their profits rather than having to pay out royalties. The more Spotify stuffs anonymous music down your throat, the less money gets paid out to real-world artists. While Spotify has not confirmed publishing its own AI music, the company's CEO has openly stated that he won't ban AI music from the platform. Right now, Spotify's largest expense is the royalties it pays out to artists. If the goal of the business is to maximize profits, it would be very lucrative for any streaming service to minimize this expense as much as possible.
Hold up. Before we go there, that's crazy. That now, I don't think that would work. Well, never say never, but I don't think that would particularly work with hip hop because there's so much more that goes into it. And I don't think any hip hop fan is going to let a playlist rock without looking at who made the song, right? If the song is dope, you might go look like, yo, who's this? I want to save them for my, my personal playlist. If it's whack, they gonna be like, yo, who this? Man, get that out of here. But to his point, when it comes to instrumental music, like beat tapes, beat albums, jazz, whatever, that's quite possible that you could be listening to a playlist that has a ton of AI artists and producers. Well, I guess one, Skynet, on on this playlist, which is crazy to think about. And honestly, recently I was making my own personal playlist for summertime. I do that all the time. I take a bunch of dope joints that kind of represent the summer that come out for summertime, and I make a playlist. So I'll go to the playlists that are offered as far as like top 20 in the US or whatever. And I noticed there were like a lot of people I had never heard of before, where I'm like, is this a hit or like, I don't understand. And I think some of what he was talking about was represented in those playlists because it was to the point where it was a bunch of new names. Like, for example, it was like the new release playlist. I think on Spotify it's called like New Release Fridays. And there's a lot of hip hop because I listen to a lot of hip hop. And it was a bunch of recognizable names from like 1 to 10. And then it just started getting real sketchy. And I was just like, is this all indie artists? Like, I couldn't understand. So obviously, me as a music fan, I was out of there. But some people, they just going to let it rock. All right. Taking action against the algorithms. This is the last part.
So what can we do to protect this industry? I'm not going to tell you to delete Spotify or avoid listening to your Discover Weekly. There's an undeniable convenience to these features that can lower the barrier to entry to listening to good music, and it allows you to listen to music before deciding to buy. But if you miss the feeling of really discovering something new, try mixing in some human-curated elements again. Ask a friend what they've been listening to lately, take a stroll to your local record shop, or attend some live music events. If you can afford it, actually buy the music from your favorite artists on a platform like Bandcamp, Amazon Music, or Qobuz. At the very least, try to spend some time each week listening to music with intention. Take notice of the artists that appear in your playlists and dive into their albums or see if they are on tour in your area soon. Shout out your favorite artists on social media and Shazam the music that you hear while out and about to remember the feeling that a certain artist track gave you in that moment. The only way that we can prevent algorithms from garbling up the entire music industry is if we keep it alive through real human connection. Algorithms can be helpful, sure, but when they take over the whole experience, we lose more than just the thrill of the hunt. We lose the humanity behind the music.
Great video. Go and subscribe to Sound Guys on YouTube if you are interested in content like that. Again, they cover a lot of different things as it relates to sound, a lot of equipment for your entertainment. But I mean, I think he said it right there at the end. There are other ways to get to the music discovery you're looking for, right? Not everybody is listening to music all the time. Not everybody who was a hip hop fan when they were younger are hip hop fans later. And some of that has to do with just where do you find the things, right? Some people love jazz and they have their record collection, but they're afraid to go and look for what's new because they came up in a time where you just go to the record store and you go to the jazz section and that was that. But I think he mentioned it. There are other outlets. There's Bandcamp. Bandcamp, if you want to get real deep with indie discovery, whether it's hip hop or something else, you can just go through Bandcamp and other sites like it. Again, like he said, it doesn't mean you have to get rid of your streaming service, but you should be mindful. The more you let the algorithm, AI dictate your music listening experience, even if you're given input, which is how AI works right now, you still can have a better experience by doing some of the things he mentioned. And one quick thing, I want to shout out Pandora, who were kind of doing it first. And I had Pandora it was probably more than a decade now. And recently I just started listening to it. Like when Spotify went down, I was like, oh, let me check out Pandora. And there's just something to be said about, I know other streaming services do this now, but there's something to be said about actively curating your music in real time. So the algorithm truly understands what you don't and do want to hear. And nothing is perfect, but I just found it interesting. So leave your comments in the comment section below. What streaming service do you use? Do you use playlists? Do you use the AI playlist? Do you use that DJ thing on Spotify? Leave your comments in the comment section below. Follow me on social media at Vegas World INC. And check out the weekly podcast, Hip Hop Now podcast, right here on YouTube. Subscribe, like, comment, but most importantly, share it with people you know enjoy this kind of content. Until next time, y'all, I'm not a critic, I'm a fan. Peace.